Hello viewer, I welcome you to this lesson. This is primary 7 class, candidate class, and today it's a privilege. We are going to be discussing our next topic, that is our first topic rather, in our second term. So in our workbooks, for those who have already accessed the workbooks, we find this when we are going to begin from the first page of the workbook, where we are having the heading or the topic that is about the people of Africa. This topic is a repetition of what we learned in primary 5. Remember, in primary 5 we looked at the people of the pre-colonial Uganda, where we looked at the people who are in Uganda before the coming of the colonialists and other foreigners. The same applies here. We are going to be looking at the people of Africa still before the coming of the foreigners. And that takes us to what we call an ethnic group or ethnic groups in Africa. We are going to begin by saying we are going to define the term ethnic group, and we are saying an ethnic group, if one, is a group of people who have the same origin and they speak related languages. That is what we mean by an ethnic group. Keywords we need to take note of are these people have got the same origin, that is the point I've underlined, and then what happens is the languages that they speak are related. That forms what we call an ethnic group. A group of people who have the same origin, they came from the same origin, and they speak related languages. Sometimes we can also say they speak similar languages, but not the same language. We need to be very careful with that. We also have to understand that these ethnic groups can also be called tribal groups. Sometimes you find a question asking, instead of saying which ethnic group, it can say which tribal group. So we need to note that these are the same. Before we look at the examples of these ethnic groups in Africa, I want us to look at the characteristics of an ethnic group. Now, in the characteristics, what happens with an ethnic group is we shall have characteristics like, one, that ethnic group has the same origin. It has the same origin. Also note that this origin can also be called cradle land. I want to make you understand all the possible words that a question can be having. It can also be called a cradle land. They can say, which was the cradle land of this ethnic group? The question simply wants the origin. Or, if it cannot be having cradle land, it can have homeland. Homeland. So we need to be aware that we are meaning the same thing here. An ethnic group has got the same origin, or the same cradle land, or we can say the same homeland. Then the second one is, you will find that the languages which are spoken in that ethnic group are related, which means we can also say an ethnic group has got related languages. Related languages. That is another point that we can say. An ethnic group has related languages spoken in it. And then also we should be able to note that when we look at an ethnic group, we'll find that the tribes in that ethnic group perform related cultural practice or cultural activities or similar cultural activities. So we can say an ethnic group has related. If we can't say related, simply say similar cultural activities. That is also another characteristic which can be seen in an ethnic group. You will find that an ethnic group has got tribes in it. Remember, an ethnic group has got the tribes in it that are having similar political, similar social or cultural activities performed. And then we also have an ethnic group having similar political setup. It has got the same, similar political setup. It has similar, or we can say related political setup. Now here we are looking at how the communities or how tribes in that ethnic group govern themselves. You will find that the way they govern themselves is always similar among these tribes in that ethnic group. Now, we need to also go back and we look at the ethnic groups we have in Africa. Examples of ethnic groups. That we have in Africa. So, the examples of the ethnic group that we have in Africa, we need to note that since we talked about this topic in primary 5, and in primary 5 we are looking at Uganda. Now, we need to understand that Uganda is part of Africa, meaning all those ethnic groups that came to Uganda can qualify here. In primary 6, we are looking at the ethnic groups that came to East Africa, meaning all those can be here. Then we shall add on some that we will not talk about, since we were not talking about the entire Africa when we were in primary 6 and primary 5. Now, we are going to be looking at the ethnic groups like the Bantu. This one, we talked about this, I believe, right away from primary 3, 4, 5, 6. We have the Nilotes. And the Nilotes, we are going to open this into 3. We are going to open this ethnic group into 3. We shall be having the Nilotics, that we shall call River Lake Nilotes. River Lake Nilotes. And we shall have the Nilohamites. Nilohamites, that we can also call Plain Nilotes. River Lake Nilotes are the Nilotics. We have this called Plain Nilotes. We are having Nilotes here, Nilotes here. I believe we are getting that. And then we have the Highland Nilotes. We have the Highland Nilotes. Still, we have got Nilotes here. So it makes us to note that in this group, in this subgroup of the Nilotes, we have got very many. We are having the Plain Nilotes, that we have called the Nilohamites. We have the River Lake Nilotes, the word in Nilotes. So that makes us to understand these Nilotes as the subgroups of the Nilotes. And then we have the other one. We have the Cushites. We are going to be having the Cushites, that we also call the Hamites. Remember, in our primary 6, we talked about the Cushites, and we understood that in East Africa, they were the first ethnic group, that was the first ethnic group to come to East Africa. And then we are going to have the Semites. We shall also be having the Semites, and then we have the Khoisan. The Khoisan, these ones are in South Africa. We shall come to talk about each one of these one by one. Now, in this particular lesson, we are going to be looking at these ethnic groups one by one, and we are going to begin by looking at the first one, and that is about the Bantu ethnic group. So we are going to have our subheading, first ethnic group, the Bantu. like I said, we have talked about the Bantu right away from far down there, as in our classes, primary 3, we hear about the Bantu, primary 4, we hear about the Bantu, primary 5, primary 6. So we are just going to repeat the same information, which means that our candidate class here is for us to digest and we understand very well what we are going to be discussing, such that we are now able, or we shall retain that information in case we had forgotten, and we shall be using it to pass the primary living examination. Now here, we shall begin by saying the Bantu, the word Bantu refers to people. Bantu refers to people. So this is where we are beginning our discussion from. The word Bantu refers to people. Finished. If tomorrow you have a question asking you, what does the word Bantu mean? Simply say, the word Bantu means people. Very simple. Now, what we need to understand is, these are the people who speak related languages with the common root word Ntu. Common root word Ntu. It's from this that they build their words that they use. For example, you will find if one wants to, this word is used when referring to either things or people. For example, we are having Bantu. We have it here, Ntu. So we shall be able to get that from this Ntu as the root word, they can be having the prefix and a word comes in. We can have from this word Ntu something like we put the prefix ki, and we shall have something like Chintu. Then if you want to pronounce it in the local way, you can say Chintu, which can mean something or a thing, if I may to translate directly. From this, we shall be having Muntu. Muntu. Then we have OMU. Muntu. Or we simply remove this Muntu, which is used when referring to a person. And that's why we are saying it's from this that we shall say the term Bantu refers to people. Now let's look at the migration and settlement of this ethnic group. Now we shall be able to note that the Bantu migrated from the Cameroon highlands. So we shall say they came from the Cameroon, be careful with the spelling of Cameroon, it's a name of a place, capital letter we are beginning with. Cameroon highlands. That is the origin, that is the homeland, that is the cradle land. I gave you all those terms so that you don't get lost. We are saying they came from the Cameroon highland. Remember, in primary 5, we were looking at these ethnic groups in Uganda. That is the direction that they used when they were entering or when they were coming to Uganda. And I want you to remember very well that when you talk about the Bantu, we say the Bantu entered through the western direction in Uganda, implying that when they came from the Cameroon highlands, they entered Uganda through the country which is here, that is Democratic Republic of Congo. But sometimes we children fail to understand the questions well. The question can say, through which country did the Bantu enter Uganda? Meaning, which neighboring country of Uganda did they pass to enter Uganda? Of which answer would be Democratic Republic of Congo. But sometimes you find, again, a candidate runs to write the origin or the cradle land, yet the question is not asking for that. Or if the question is now asking for the origin or cradle land, again you bring the country they passed through. So here we say they passed through the Congo forest and they entered. Remember we say that Congo is that neighboring country of Uganda which has got very many thick forests. So they passed via the Congo forest as they entered Uganda through the western direction, that is about the Bantu in Uganda as in particular. Then we also need to note, like we have understood the origin, and the other thing we are going to be looking at what made them to migrate. But before that, we also need to look at the occupation of these people. So we shall say the Bantu were mainly crop farmers. But this, we have not mentioned the occupation. If a question is asking for the occupation is asking for the activity. Which activity were they doing to earn a living or to survive? If we say they were crop farmers, you will have not mentioned the activity. Now, which is the activity? The activity, therefore, becomes crop farming. Don't say crop farmers, the activity is crop farming. Or, if you don't want to say crop farming, you can simply say cultivation. Cultivation. That was the activity. Cultivation. Of which cultivation simply refers to crop growing or crop farming or the growing of crops. Now, after us understanding their major occupation, we should also be able now to tell the main reason for their migration. That is the major reason that made them to leave the Cameroon highlands coming towards other parts or moving to other parts. And simply, we are going to be looking at coming towards East Africa or Uganda in particular. So the reasons that we are going to have, among others, the main reason is built from the main occupation of that ethnic group. We have said here they were crop cultivate or they were crop growers, which means the main reasons for migration. Reasons for migration. I have said the main reason here now was to look for, they were looking for areas with fertile soil. They were looking for areas with fertile soil for crop growing. Dear candidate, this is our main reason for the migration of the Bantu. Why have we said it's the main reason? Because we are considering the reason, the major activity that this ethnic group was practicing. So we are saying, since they were crop growers, then it means that the main reason for them moving was looking for areas that had fertile soil, such that they could grow their crops there. However, we also have other reasons. For example, we shall say these people became overpopulated in their cradle land. They became overpopulated. They became overpopulated. They became too many. That's what we simply mean by population. Remember, we said population is the total number of people living in an area. So these people became too many, and therefore others lacked where to grow crops, and they had to move away looking for areas to grow their crops or to cultivate. Then the other reason is these people might have moved due to conflicts. Conflicts, these are misunderstandings that arise in communities, can be internal or external. So here we can have two sub-points here. We can say due to internal conflicts, they migrated due to internal conflicts. Sometimes we write this as internal attacks. Don't get lost. We are talking about the same thing, dear candidate. If we can't say internal attack, maybe they were having other people who would attack them. We have that as external attacks or external conflicts. Does not change. It is the same thing we are meaning. So that also made them to migrate. The ones who are now wakened up had to run away looking for other people also to displace, and they occupy such places. This is not enough.
we shall also be able to say that some of these people were moving due to adventure, due to love for adventure, due to love for adventure. What do we mean by love for adventure? They wanted to discover what was in other parts of the world. They wanted to discover what was in other parts of Africa. So as a result, they ended up migrating from their homeland into other parts of Africa. And then also, we shall be able to add the next point saying that some Bantu people were migrating due to problems like floods existing in their homeland. If not, drought might have been experienced, they must have experienced drought in their homeland, or they must have experienced famine in their homeland, or we can say these people might have, they are those that moved due to influence. Due to influence. Others moved due to influence. Now, we should be able to ask ourselves, what does this mean? Others migrating due to influence. You will find that sometimes, if I'm to give you an example, sometimes even like you are in class, and then you didn't want to have, you didn't want to ease yourself. Then you see your friend going to ask for permission from the teacher, and you also feel motivated, you feel influenced, you will be like, I think I should also go and ask for permission that I can also go outside. But you don't want to ease, but you have been influenced by the friend. That is what we call migrating due to influence. Which means that some Bantu could just see others moving with the luggage and they're like, hey, people, where are you going? For us, we are going to this area. Wait for me also. One also enters his room, packs things, and joins the line. Joins the rest, and they migrate. That is what we call migrating due to influence. In other words, one did not have that in mind. Now, after looking at this, we are going also to understand that we have got, when this Bantu came, before we look at the effects of their migration, we also need to note that when the Bantu came to East Africa, they chose to settle in what we call interlacustrine region. I want us to remind ourselves on this interlacustrine region. I have said, when the Bantu came to East Africa, they chose to settle in the interlacustrine region. What is this we call interlacustrine region? Here we are saying this is an area. Interlacustrine region refers to areas between the Great Lakes. Between the Great Lakes of East Africa. An area, if it's interlacustrine region, we shall say an area. It refers to an area between the Great Lakes of East Africa. If we are given with plural, we shall say interlacustrine regions refer to areas between the Great Lakes of East Africa. Which means we are also to understand those Great Lakes, examples of the Great Lakes in East Africa. This we are revising, because we learned about this. We talked about lakes like Victoria, Lake Victoria. We have Lake Albert. We have Lake Kyoga. These ones are in Uganda. We have Lake George. We have Lake Edward, also in Uganda, all this. And then we shall go to Lake Tanganyika. This one is in Tanzania. Tanganyika, I believe we know the location of Lake Tanganyika on the map of East Africa. And then we have also Lake Turkana. Lake Turkana. So these are, among others, the examples of Great Lakes in East Africa. So we are now going to understand why did the Bantu settle in the Interlacustrine region, or why did they choose to settle in areas between the Great Lakes of East Africa. That is our subheading that we are going to be talking about. So we are going to have a heading, reasons as to why the Bantu chose, past tense of choose, reasons as to why the Bantu chose to settle in the Interlacustrine region. So that is the subheading that we are going to be understanding. What made the Bantu to settle in the Interlacustrine regions? There are some things that they were considering that were in the Interlacustrine regions. Based on the fact that these people were crop cultivators, or they were cultivators or crop growers, crop farmers, which means that they found fertile soil in these areas. So we are going to first say the Interlacustrine region had fertile soil for crop growing. So when they found the fertile soil here, they were like, wow, we shall not again move any further. We have got what we wanted. We can now begin growing our crops here. Secondly, these areas, remember we are saying they are between the Great Lakes, and areas around lakes receive a lot of rainfall, of which rainfall supports plant or crop growth. And that was another factor we are going to add here. The Interlacustrine areas, or the Interlacustrine regions rather, received a lot of rainfall. Be very careful with the spelling of received. Sometimes we make mistakes by writing I before E. This is the correct one. The Interlacustrine region received reliable rainfall. Reliable rainfall. Or you can simply say the Interlacustrine region received a lot of rainfall. And then, because of the rainfall, we shall also talk about climate, which was now cool. One can also say the Interlacustrine region had cool or favorable climate. Still, that one can be attached to this point, because we learned in primary 5 that we have the factors of, the aspects of climate, and rainfall is one of them. So rainfall is, determines the climate. So when we say the area received reliable rainfall, we can't again say the area received or had a favorable climate. That is automatically under this. But we can split it if, we can write the two like that. And then we are also going to look at, after looking at the reasons why they chose to settle in the Interlacustrine region, we are also going to look at the effects for the migration of the Bantu, of which effects we are going to have them in two. We are going to have those which were good, we call them positive effects in social studies, and then we have those that were bad, we shall automatically be calling them negative effects. So we are going to have the effects of the Bantu migration into East Africa, effects of the Bantu migration. Now, here we are going to begin by looking at the positive effects. Positive effects. I say the positive effects are the good ones. So they are the ones we are going to begin with before we go to look at the bad ones. Now, since these Bantu people were crop farmers, then we shall automatically be able to note that they had come with new crops. So we are going to say the Bantu introduced new crops into areas or to the areas where they settled. And if we are looking at East Africa, then we shall be specific. They introduced new crops to East Africa. If it's to Uganda, we can say they introduced new crops into Uganda. They introduced new crops. They introduced new crops. That is the first positive or the first good effect. And then the other one, we shall say, sorry, it's supposed to be they. The other one we shall say, they introduced new farming methods. New farming methods into East Africa or Uganda. They introduced new farming methods. For example, we say these people introduced the use of cow dung as manure in Africa. In Uganda, people can use cow dung to make manure. Be aware of that. So that such ideas were such farming systems or farming methods were introduced by the Bantu. And then also they introduced new languages in areas they settled. They introduced new languages. New languages. Apart from introducing new languages, we shall also be able to say that these people also introduced new cultures. They introduced new cultures. So we shall say they introduced new cultures. And finally, we shall say the Bantu also introduced new systems of administration. That is what we call centralized monarchy. So we can add that as our last point. They introduced centralized monarchy. Centralized monarchy. Now, centralized monarchy, we are looking at the system of having a traditional leader as the highest or someone with the highest authority in an area. For example, we have a kingdom whereby a king has got all the authority over his people. That's what we call monarchy or centralized monarchy. So such a system of political administration was introduced by the Bantu. That's why sometimes someone can say they introduced kingdoms and chiefdoms. But it's better for us as candidates to say the Bantu introduced a centralized system of administration. Or you simply say the Bantu introduced centralized monarchy. We go to the negative effects that has been for posting. Now we go to the second, that is about negative effects. Here we are going to be looking at how their coming was a disadvantage. And we shall be going back to remember what we learned in the previous classes. We say before these ethnic groups came to Uganda, before these ethnic groups came to East Africa, there were people who were already living there that were called the Bushmen. So when they came, it meant that they had also to displace the Bushmen. They had to chase them away and they occupy their land. So that was something which was not good to the Ugandans, to those original inhabitants. We shall say the Bantu displaced. They displaced the original inhabitants. Original inhabitants. For example, we have said the Bushmen, that is to say the Bushmen. That is for the case of Uganda or for the case of East Africa, as we looked at. Then the second negative effect for the coming of these people, we shall say their coming led to wars. They led to, or they caused wars where they passed. They caused wars in areas they passed. In areas where they passed. Remember that as they are passing in an area, they were looking for also people to displace. So you could find that as they attempt to drive people away, there are some communities that could become also strong. They have a fight. Because you come and you want to displace people from their area, you end up fighting them. So they caused such wars, such fights in areas they passed, of which if a war happens in an area, we expect people dying, people losing their lives. We expect property being destroyed. Those are the effects of a war. Then lastly, we shall be saying that this Bantu also led to the increase in the number of people in an area. They increased the number of people in an area. They increased the number of people. They increased the number of people in areas they settled. And this could cause over-utilization of resources. Remember, when people are too many in an area, you will find that they will be able to finish up the resources very fast and they will exhaust, and the resources will not again be enough for everyone. So that is about the positive and negative effects of the Bantu. We are going to be looking at the examples of the Bantu. Before the examples, on our page 3, we have the Bantu groups. We have the groups categorized as the East African Bantu, we have the Central African Bantu, we have the South African Bantu, and then we shall also be having the West African Bantu. Those are the subgroups of the Bantu. When we look at the East African Bantu, we look at the ones that we already finished to talk about when we were in East Africa. Of course, that's when we talked about Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, Burundi, and then Tanzania, whereby we said in Uganda, we have the tribes like the Baganda, that we say the major is the one that occupies, or is the largest tribe we have under the Bantu in Uganda. Then we have others like the Basoga, we have others like the Bakonzo, or Bakonjo, can also be called like that. We have the Banyankole, we have the Bachiga, we have the Bagwere, the Bagisu, very many of them. And then going into Kenya, we have the Akamba, we have the Luya, that we can also call the Abaluya, remember. And then we have the Baguzi, the Chikuyu, we have the Wadawit, and then the Meru. So all these are the ones that we find in Kenya. In Rwanda, Burundi, we say we have the Hutu there, and then we have the Chaga. In Tanzania, we have the Yao, we have the Ngoni. Remember, we talked about the Ngoni entering Tanzania from the southern direction, and we said it was the last Bantu group to enter Tanzania. That is when we're in primary 6. We are just going through the revision. And then we have the Nyamwezi, that is the largest also, and we have the Hehe also there. So these are the tribes that fall under the Bantu ethnic group that is in East Africa. We are going to be looking at the Nilotes. That is when we meet in the next lesson. We shall be looking at the Nilotes ethnic group. That will be in our next lesson. For now, because of time, we are ending our lesson there, and I thank you so much for being part of this lesson. Those who have not yet got the books, please kindly visit the school or find ways of getting the books from school, because they are readily available. Thank you. God bless you.